Singapore is unusual in running not one sovereign investor but two, deliberately built on opposing philosophies. GIC manages the country's foreign reserves as diversified, secretive, globally spread endowment. Temasek owns the state's commercial equity as a concentrated, transparent, and active shareholder. Between them, they answer at national scale the question that this series keeps circling: concentrate or diversify. This issue reads the two portfolios side by side, explains why a state splits its capital in two, and draws out the lessons that their division of labor holds for any investor. When we are talking about GIC, it's the reserve manager. It invests the country's foreign reserves entirely outside Singapore, spread across equities, fixed income, and real assets. And it is so guarded that it discloses neither its size nor its annual return, publishing only a rolling 20-year real return currently at 3.4% above global inflation. External trackers put its assets approximately at $940 billion US. Its purpose is preservation, to grow the international purchasing power of the reserves over decades, and above all, to avoid permanent loss. When we are talking about Temasek, it's the owner. Founded in 1974 to hold the government stakes in Singapore's national champions, the bank DBS, Singtel, the airline, the port, it grew into a global active investor that takes large, often controlling positions, sits on boards, and reports openly a net portfolio of the value of $518 billion. That's approximately 400 billion US dollars. The given figures are applicable as of 31st of March 2026 and a 20-year total shareholder return of 6.8%. Its job is to compound commercial wealth as a principle and not to track a benchmark. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our channel and welcome back to the template series. Now, this series sits within our fundamentals to the noise series, and this is our fourth issue in the series. The template series essentially examines how the world's most consequential pools of capital are actually built. Each issue takes a single institution, a conglomerate, a sovereign fund, a family holding company, a venture firm, and reads its portfolio from inside, what it owns, how the pieces fit together, the one principle of construction that makes the whole thing work. And the aim is not to track performance or chase steps, but to understand the architecture, why a firm concentrates or diversifies, how it engineers permanence, and where the structure gives it an edge and where the same structure sets a hard limit. Previously, we have shared with you Berkshire Hathaway, the Norway Pension Fund, and the family holding company Exor. Now, those issues taken together, as well as the issues that we share with you in the future episodes, map a spectrum from the maximal conviction of a five-name book to the maximum breadth of owning almost every listed company on earth, with most real portfolios sitting somewhere in between. So essentially, what we are trying to share with you is fundamentals through the noise, the durable logic beneath famous names, drawn out one template at a time. In today's episode of the template series, we wanted to share with you GIC and Temasek, one state, two opposite portfolios. A single small sitting state runs two sovereign investors built on opposing philosophies. The clearest life proves that the choice between concentration and diversification can be answered by doing both. Singapore is unusual in running not one sovereign investor but two, deliberately built on opposing philosophies. GIC manages the country's foreign reserves as diversified, secretive, globally spread endowment. Temasek owns the state's commercial equity as a concentrated, transparent, and active shareholder. Between them, they answer at national scale the question that this series keeps circling: concentrate or diversify. This issue reads the two portfolios side by side, explains why a state splits its capital in two, and draws out the lessons that their division of labor holds for any investor. Let's start by discussing the two portfolios. Now, the two funds do not overlap. They are near mirror images, each matched to a different pool of national capital. When we are talking about GIC, it's the reserve manager. It invests the country's foreign reserves entirely outside Singapore, spread across equities, fixed income, and real assets. And it is so guarded that it discloses neither its size nor its annual return, publishing only a rolling 20-year real return currently at 3.4% above global inflation. External trackers put its assets approximately at $940 billion US. Its purpose is preservation, to grow the international purchasing power of the reserves over decades, and above all, to avoid permanent loss. When we are talking about Temasek, it's the owner. Founded in 1974 to hold the government stakes in Singapore's national champions, the bank PBS, Singtel, the airline, the port. It grew into a global active investor that takes large, often controlling positions, sits on boards, and reports openly a net portfolio of the value of $518 billion. That's approximately 400 billion US dollars. The given figures are applicable as of 31st of March 2026 and a 20-year total shareholder return of 6.8%. Its job is to compound commercial wealth as a principle and not to track a benchmark. Let's see the two pocket model side by side. We have GIC, the reserve manager, and Temasek, the active owner. In terms of capital, it's the nation's foreign reserves, and for Temasek, it's the state's commercial equity. When we are talking about style, for GIC, it's diversified, benchmark aware. For Temasek, it's concentrated, active, direct. And where does it invest? GIC invests almost entirely outside Singapore, and for Temasek, it is Singapore and worldwide. When we are talking about the holdings, GIC is comprised of 51% in equities, 26% in fixed income, and 23% in real assets. When we're talking about the holdings in terms of Temasek, it's 50% listed, 50% unlisted, and in approximately 25% of the firms, it owns more than 25% of the equity. As far as disclosure is concerned, for GIC, it is minimal, no size, no annual returns. For Temasek, it is full, annual NPV and TSR. Coming to the most important metric, the headline metric, for GIC, it is 20-year real return, and for Temasek, it is 20-year TSR, which is at 6.8%, and 1 year, which is at 10.5%. And talking in terms of mandates, for GIC, it is to preserve and grow the reserves purchasing power. For Temasek, is to deliver sustainable long-term returns as the owner. Next, let's talk about the construction logic. The split is not redundancy, but a division of labor. Two different pools of capital, each with different job and therefore a different structure. The reserves that GIC manages must stay safe, liquid, and globally diversified. They are the country's long-term store of value, and the mandate is to preserve their purchasing power across decades. Concentration there would be reckless. So GIC is built like global endowment, spread across asset classes and geographies, closest in spirit to Norway's fund that we have covered in an earlier issue. A diversified owner that receives the world's return and competes on discipline rather than selection. Temasek's capital is a different thing entirely. It's the state's commercial equity meant to be put to work by an owner. Free from reserve preservation mandate, it can concentrate, hold controlling positions, invest at home as readily as abroad, and drive value actively from the boardroom, closest in spirit to the direct owners of the opening issues. Keeping the two apart is precisely the point. It lets each remain pure. GIC never has to dilute its diversification to chase a strategic stake. And Temasek never has to carry a liquid bond book that it does not want. The state gets both a stabilizer as well as an engine, and neither compromises the other. It is the barbell logic of an earlier thesis, a diversified base beneath a concentrated core. It is the barbell logic of an earlier thesis that we have already covered, a diversified base beneath a concentrated core, run not as two sleeves but as two full institutions. And this brings us to the most important part of the video, which is what the structure teaches. Singapore answers at national scale the question that the series keeps returning to: concentrate or diversify? The answer is both, provided each pocket is matched to the job that its capital must do. On the spectrum the series has been drawing, the two funds sit at opposite ends. GIC belongs near diversification pool alongside Norway's reserve fund. Temasek belongs to near concentrated owner pool alongside the conglomerate and the family holding company of early issues. What makes Singapore distinctive is that a single owner runs both at once on purpose and refuses to blend them. The transferable lesson is the most practical since the index fund case because it's about structure rather than selection. This is the institutional version of mapping money to its purpose. And ordinary investors reserve emergency and near-term money want safety and diversification. Their long-term horizon growth money can tolerate concentration and illiquidity. The common mistake is to run a single, undifferentiated port and apply one rule to all. Singapore's models face the opposite. Give each job its own pocket, its own structure, and its own measure of success, and judge each only against the task that it was built for. The honest limits are twofold. The model demands scale and governance that most investors and even most states do not have. Two complete institutions, each with deep talent and the political discipline to leave the reserve pocket untouched through downturns and temptations alike. And the transparency is uneven. Temasek reports in full while GIC discloses almost nothing. A reminder that a structure like this ultimately rests on trust in stewardship that outsiders cannot fully audit. As with every portfolio in this series, fitting the capital into itself is a deliberate design. It buys clarity of purpose at the first of running two firms where most run one. In conclusion, we can say that concentrate or diversify is the false choice at scale. Match each pocket of capital to do the job that it must do, a diversified store to preserve, a concentrated book to compound. And if you can, run both separately. That's all that we have for you in this particular episode of the template series. Stay tuned in for the next one.